you know, I wish I was there in person, but in spirit, we are all one. So praise Yahweh. So I hope you're having a great time. I think your weather is the same as mine. I think you have 72 degrees and semi-sunny cloudy. So it looks pretty good. So yes, as Daniel intimated, I'm going to do a teaching today, and I have a subtitle off of the main title called Up from Slavery. But my title is kind of Freedom from Fundamentalism. And I'll flush that out, what that could really mean. But I wanted to start. Well, I did want to just say also, I know Daniel mentioned I do have a YouTube channel. So if you are not familiar with my teachings, I have over 200 YouTubes. If you'd like to subscribe, just put my name into YouTube. And I have a lot of playlists with a lot of deep, I think, kind of meat of the word teachings on a lot of topics and subjects, hot topics today. So that being said, I'm going to start out in Paul. In Galatians 3:28, he has a very famous verse, I'm sure everyone knows. That he talks that there is neither male nor female. There's neither Jew nor Gentile. There's neither slave nor free. But we are all one. Praise Adonai in Adonai Yeshua. So I think that is my jumping off, because up from slavery, this is the thing. We've got to get, this is my opinion, of course, this is going to be my teaching, and be Berean and do your own due diligence to check my research, but we need to get down to what I call the sod level understanding of the word, the mystery level, which is where we are going to find truth, where we're going to find being free. Oh my gosh, hold on a second. I got to turn my phone off. We are going to get to a place where knowing, as Yeshua said, all the hidden things are going to come to the light. It is going to free us. And we are going to get all of the distinctions that dog the world and keep the body of Yeshua from shining as the bright corporate light that we are. And they are having the categories of sex, race, and class. These have been historically distorted, presented to us in many unbiblical, truly unbiblical ways, and has caused a tremendous harm to the reputation of Yahweh and great disservice, harm, you name it, violence, bloodshed, everything else in the world. So we're going to get free. The word, he says, if the Son makes you free, you are free indeed. So in Paul, what's really Paul is talking about is there is neither male nor female. There is no sex. This whole concept. So what I'm really going to focus on, I'm going to get into, is talking about gender, the feminine principle, the male principle in the word, and how male and female are supposed to be understood from the scriptures, not by tradition or not by a church doctrine, not by the constructs of the world, the roles that people are forced into, but truly from the deep emirate, the truth that is in the word. So sex is a big one. Also race. We know, and this is a lot of what's being talked about this weekend or this week, Sukkot. We need to be free from all of these distinctions that the fallen world tries to divide us on. And class, when he says Jew or Greek, he really is talking about the class distinctions, rich or poor. And maybe in America, where this is not the hugest issue with us, it's getting to be more and more so as we lose our middle class, but many parts of the world, you are born into a class and that's it. There is no upward mobility. And this has always been a prison for many, many pockets of peoples in nations in the world. So that being said, we're going to jump right into the concept of gender. There is neither male nor female. So what is Paul talking about? Now, I like Paul. So I'm going to give you a couple of my presuppositions, just so you know where I'm coming from. You don't have to guess per se. I like Paul. I think Paul is a brilliant theologian, perfect for his time in trying to understand or trying to explain what just happened, this cosmic release of the Son of Elohim on the world, and to a special demographic group called the Gentiles. And he's absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. But to understand Paul, because he even says he's very hard to understand because he is, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, and I think many of you know this about me, I'm deep into Jewish mysticism. I'm deep into what is called the Kabbalah or the Zohar, many of the writings where the sages and the prophets have couched for millennium, these deep understandings of how these words are to be used. So I get into the keys to the kingdom. Now, let me just say one last thing here on that note. I follow a biblical exegesis called PARDS, which, and I hope many of you understand Hebrew roots movement. PARDS is that there are many levels of meaning to every word. I mean, this is, Yahweh, you cannot put him in a box. He is so multifaceted. If you know anything today, I'm just throwing this out on science things, fractal technology, what we're being understand about the fractal, the subatomic fractal world, just blows the lid off of putting Yahweh in any kind of a box. But there's a deep level there, so there's 4 levels of meaning minimum to every word. There's a plain level meaning. There's like a hint that something's deeper. There is the midrash or the drash meaning, which is sort of the law, the application, the moral and the ethical way to apply these understandings. And then there is what is called the sud level. And this is where these sages and prophets, in my opinion, Yeshua being the premier rabbinic teacher of his generation, of how they are brilliantly have come up with a systematic theology that explains everything that can be known of Yahweh. Now, so what I want to say is, and this is, I'm not making any of this up. When I give code words or talk about keys to the kingdom or, different levels, this is all coming from the writings. But I think if a lot of people understand today, the writings is much bigger than quote unquote the 66 books. Today we live in the time of a great feast, a great banquet, where at the click of a button you can access texts that oh my gosh, in other generations these people would have died to be able to, instead of getting on a camel and going to Alexandria Library, which actually I wasn't even there, you can just access texts across the board. And all the texts that I access or that are being in this banquet we're talking about today from are the texts that the House of Judah has kept for us, which includes writings of all the different streams. That's why the Dead Sea Scrolls are so important. That is why reading the apocryphal text. That's why reading the Enochian literature. All of this has to be, and reading the Zohar, reading the redacted writings of the oral Torah. So that's just all of my intro. But let's just jump into this, male and female. So another to clue you in, why Paul has to be understood on this level if we're ever going to get past this. Because I'm a teacher. Praise Yahweh for Jackson, who allows women to teach and supports and upholds women's ability. I mean, I always say I feel like I have the same Ruach HaKodesh as you guys do. So I can teach, and this to get everybody free so they can be who they are in the body is a great step up. So in 1 Corinthians 11:3, where Paul is talking about, there's and even this one, if we could get this straight, because I want to say, like, to give you an example, like it says in the last days, one of the things that the elect our job to do, or with all this emerging light that we're going to get from reading all the text and putting it together, is all the crooked places are going to be made straight, which that's another way of saying all these doctrinal tributary, it's just crazy. It's so hard to find a straight path, are going to be straightened out. And when Paul is talking about, Christ is the head of the man, and the man is the head of the woman, and the head of Christ is Yahweh. He is talking in a very Kabbalistic sense. He is referencing there very specifically the Tetragrammaton, Yav-He, Vav-He, which is in of itself is a code, is a compressed, oh my gosh, understanding of the tree of life and of the Sephirithic understanding that we can have. So if you don't know that, you have no place to do but take Paul on a literal level, and then we have all this, but what Paul is really delineating here, and I think I have this in a little more flesh out, because I'm going to come back to that. The head of the woman is the man. It's not in a literal sense. We are no longer on the Peshat level. We're talking about Hokmah, the Suffereth of wisdom. With wisdom, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, and Bina, which is the female. So Hokmah and Bina, which are Hebrew words, which everyone should get very familiar with, are in and of themselves words that are symbols that are just telling us this, beginning to open up this whole concept of gender. And I shouldn't even use the word, see, gender in the Godhead. All right. But I have to say this before I even get there. The main thing that people need to understand, we cannot be, this is why a lot of these concepts of what is anthropomorphic language, how do you take a parable or allegorical language? It's never meant to be taken on its literal level. It is used, it's a literary device, yes, but it is specifically used to try to help our finite brains kind of get behind the veil and sort of understand how Yahweh, who is spirit, how it all works. All right. So he just uses language we're familiar with, like, which is male and female. And ultimately, he's not at all talking about people, our genders, so I'm the woman and, Daniel's the guy, whatever. We are talking about the Suffereth mind of Elohim. And he did it. I didn't make it up, and he created them male and female, and what that means. So let me just start here with this. This is a track that I've been on for years. I have been fascinated. What happened to me in the beginning when I started reading the word, I believe when Yahweh started to call me into this deeper level understanding, I would read text and I would just see words and they would almost start to vibrate off the page. I'm like going, and what I was seeing was the hint, the remez, that these words have deeper meanings. I mean, I can't take that little. And he started to bring me into this concept of the code words. And then I began to realize that, there's a whole totally Jewish exegesis concept where they deliberately code spiritual understanding in very concrete imagery so that we can just begin to wrap our minds around it. All right. So I'm going to go through some of these code words that you're going to totally recognize. And I hope you're going to begin to see there's a pattern going on here. But when man we're told he is a miniature microcosm of the universe. So here you have in the beginning of Genesis story, you have Yahweh Elohim says he made man. And he said, let us, so you got to understand who is this plural us, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. See, those words are so specific. And when you understand the backstory, it's like, oh, I get it. So the first thing that Yahweh did, he is and let me tell you this, we're not outside of the Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. This is when you get into kind of upper level thinking. This is what's called the upper wisdom. This is the upper waters. You've had to be able to kind of think. I hate to say it, you got to think like a woman. You got to be able to think kind of multi-level all at the same time. So while Adonai Echad, Adonai is a unity, but you can take the unity and you can break it down into its parts and you can examine each part. That is the whole concept behind the male and female. So he said he made them male and female, and he is not talking at all about little gender people down here on planet Earth. All right. We are in a realm of the mind. We are in a philosophical, theological, we're in the mind, which actually is not just theological. It is the purest essence. This is called the primal. If you were a Platoist, you call this is the primary. I think it's they say primary mundi. This is the first thought, the first cause. This is the beginning. This is Elohim as spirit. He's just has this all in his mind. So on the male side, which is the word Hokmah. Hokmah always refers to the masculine. Well, let me start this way. There's another word called the crown. Because if you understand, see these words, when you understand them in their larger pictures, why does a king always have a crown? I mean, there's always something on his head that designates, that signifies, that makes him the king. He has the crown, all right? The crown refers to this place of the Godhead of Ketur, the crown. It is the highest supernal revelation of Yahweh that has ever been given to man. That's what but it is in a sense, it is androgynous, because we know Yahweh has no gender. He is a spirit. But he tells us in the beginning of this thing, he did make them male and female. So we have a beginning of a subdivision here. But on the male side, this is how the language is used. So we can begin to unwrap this. The male is always seen as giving. The female is always seen as receiving. And this is couched in the word. So if you were to take these words, if you were to take each letter, you were to permeate them, you do all these different things that the sages do to get deeper meanings, you would see that this principle continually carries forward. I mean, the man has seed, and it goes into the woman who is the fertile ground. So when you hit a correct archetype, which is like the correct gold standard, this is the original pure understanding, you can apply it anywhere else in the word if you do. And if it fits, then you know you're in a straight place. You're not crooked, because you're not trying to put a round peg in a square hole. But the largest understanding we have in our text of this is the sun and the moon. They're completely coded of this principle of the sun and the moon. And this is why you'll never understand Bible prophecies. You'll never understand the book of Revelation. You'll never understand what they're trying to explain to us if you don't understand it's couched in the fact that we're using the sun and the moon as an allegory for the female principle and the male principle. Now, obviously, the sun is the male principle, and the sun represents heaven. And the female is represented as earth, that's another one. It's heaven. To get heaven and earth is another way of saying the male principle and the female principle. They're not confused. Every archetype stays. So however you apply it. But in the sun has light in and of itself. But this whole concept with the moon, why does the moon receive light? Because this is the whole concept in the Suffereth. And a Suffereth Ikai, if you're not familiar with that term, this is an understanding that sages has. And in my opinion, this is ancient. This goes all the way back to Abraham. This is totally Enochian. The same, they might use different words, but once you get the concept of what they're talking about, you could track it. The moon has no light of its own. And the whole concept with the Sefer, the first thing is Keter gives everything it has to Hokum, to the man. That's why Paul says that the head of the man is God. He's saying the head of the man ultimately is Keter. Everything starts up there, goes to Hokum, which is wisdom. And then he says, with wisdom, he created the heavens and the earth. And then Hokum gives everything it has to the female, which is Bina. And Bina is understanding. And it is the female personification of this. So you have this concept of the moon doesn't have its own light. It receives it from Hokum. So they're keeping the archetype completely intact, and they're giving you more information. But this has a lot to do with and I'm just going to go through a couple of these. When the apostles ask Yeshua, who's going to sit on your right hand and your left hand? Do we get to sit on the right? Because the right side is the male side, and of course everybody, they want to sit on the right side, but they're talking about a position, a Sephirithic position in the Godhead. And this has a lot of understanding to it, because there's hierarchy, and he's saying, only the Father. I can't tell you that's the Father's intel. I'm not going to give you that right now. So this is the context of a lot of this understanding, because you have a right side and a left side, and this is why the anthropomorphic understanding of Yahweh, he's got a right hand and a left hand. Well, he doesn't really have a right, but what he has, what we can understand, is he has mechanisms. He has attributes, and this gets this is why I love this stuff, because it gets so deep into the math, into the physics, into the biology, into every science. Then this is what they're discovering today, that all the language that the sages have kept for us absolutely is tracking 100% with what science is telling us today, like in quantum mechanics and in a lot of the astrophysicists and things like this. So this is an exciting time, because as science gets up to speed, if we get up to speed, we can get on top of science, which is what's supposed to happen at the end, and say, yep, we told you so. That's the whole point. Anyways, back here to the right side and the left side, it's talking about the and then in the middle, you have a middle pillar. So you've ever heard of Yeshua referred to as he's the middle pillar. this is a very, can't go into all of this, and this discourse can't, but there is definitely, we're talking structure here, right side, a left side, a middle pillar. That's you having Yod, He, Vav, He, and I said the Tetragrammaton. Yod is Hokum, He is Bina. You have the Heavenly Mother and the Heavenly Father and the Heavenly Mother. See, when they say Abba, Ima, that's exactly what they're referring to. Abba is our father, Ima is our mother, all right? But again, we are sticking with archetypes, and we are trying to explain in the whole process of creation how this whole thing began to take shape. So we have a Heavenly Mother, the Ruach HaKodesh, and that's why in the language, she's feminine. That's why wisdom is always personified as a female, because this is Bina. This is the left side. This is a deliberate construct of Elohim. And it's actually, gets into the physics, because it gets down to this thing. It's really a huge system of computer. I mean, really, the best analogy today is a computer program where all the programs that Yahweh ever needed for anything that was ever in his mind to create for all eternity, inside time, outside of time, soup to nuts, Gehenna to the highest heavens, is in this coding system that he established called the male and the female, the X's and the O's, the positive and the negative. I mean, it's just brilliant, but so anyways, then you have Yod, so you have this whole concept in the family of the Tetragrammaton. You have Hokum the father, Bina the mother, Yod He, because He is the feminine. You have Vav, and this is, just touching on these things so fast. Vav is the whole lower seventh Suffereth, and this will explain everything, especially the ancients, because all this knowledge and understanding will help us to decode all these ancient texts and all these symbols and things. And like, I used to spend years looking at, because what are they talking? What is that? Now it's a language, just like chemistry, the chemical chart. It's just like the chemical chart. It's a language. Once you learn it, it's easy. So then you also have the principle of the circle and the square. These are some more, they're referred to in the text. They're a little more hidden, but this is a little even more Kabbalistic understanding. But light and darkness. You know, Yahweh, he says he made the light. He made the light, and see, this is why and he created the darkness. Now, let me just say that light is, again, like the sun. It's revealed. You can see it. It's not hidden. But darkness is conceals things. Darkness is, but I have to say this here really quick. I mean, take my only rabbit trail, but I have to do a quick rabbit trail, because this is important to understand. I have said this in other, teachings and YouTubes I've done. When it comes to race, which is a big hot button issue, when it talks about a lot of times color, white, red, and black. So we got people in the world. They're white, they're red, or they're black. And then there's all sorts of, people do all sorts of stuff with, but see, when you understand the deeper level of understanding, it has nothing to do with people. It has nothing to do with our skin color. Of course, some people are white, some people are black, but that's actually, that's genetically, environmentally induced different ways. When the Bible is telling us about red souls and black souls, or it's talking about the conditions of the soul. So when it talks about Edom being ruddy, I got that right. It's talking about, so you have three levels of the soul. You have a black soul. You have a very evil, dark soul that is really kind of sold to the dark side. That's a fact. You have a white soul. You have souls that are purified. Let us believe that we are whitening up our souls. We are getting our souls to have those white robes of righteousness. We are clothed in pure light, white, or you have a red soul, which is sort of in the middle, which is coded to Japheth. You got, and this is what they do. Ham is, but it's not color. It's the condition of the soul. Ham is on the left side. You got white souls, and then in the middle, you got everybody else who's just a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, not really ready to make up their mind which way they want to go. They just kind of go through life responding to the circumstances. But that's what that all means. So when we have darkness does not mean black. It's not negative. All darkness means in your text is that it's telling you that is space. Actually, the ancients called the ether. It's just space that doesn't have any light in it. It's not, it's just space. He hasn't filled everything at that level. He hasn't filled everything with light. We're just starting a journey here. We're just starting to do, making this whole thing. So this gets down to what I want to say. making the connection, why male and female is so important, and why Paul would say there's need. And there's a very enigmatic quote in the Gospel of Thomas, if you've ever read it. It says, when the female becomes male, it's like, what are they talking about? It's really funny now because to listen to what people say. This is a concept where we're going. See, because in an archetype, like I said, it's a template. We are a little microcosm of the universe. Every human being is a microcosm. And we have a left brain and a right brain. And basically, this is the whole system. We have a left brain and a right brain, and we have a middle column. We have a, a spinal cord. But up near the brain, there's so we have a left brain and a right brain, and then in the middle, there's this, I forget what the technical term is, the biological term. I can't remember what it is. I don't know what this says. Anyways, Chinese. This is what it's talking about. And what it means is that when we get to a place where we are back up thinking like Yahweh does, where there's neither male nor female, but we have full understanding. We are full of our mother. We are full of our father. We have full of wisdom and full of understanding, which they also is another third Hebrew word called dot. When you are full of wisdom and full of understanding, you reach a level of dot, which means you truly have supernal thoughts. You are truly thinking these things on the level where Elohim is, all right, in terms of his, where he wants us to get. When you're operating in that position, you are neither male nor female. You have integrated yourself. And what the saying, we know this about house, he's a constant divider. A house divided cannot stand. So whether you're in your, whether you're using this analogy, of a nation, of a person, but in your own mind, you ever had a conversation with yourself and you just can't get, and this is why Yeshua, he is our peace. This is the most important piece. He is the middle. He makes complete harmony and functionality and peace and synchronicity between the left and the right. He is what brings it all together. So anyways,
that's the Corpus Callosum. And it's just like you say, it's a tracking center in between the two that regulates what goes to one or the other.
Yeah. And so what science is proving is that the Bible was what the Bible's always been telling us. But, Hasatan wants us to keep us in kindergarten. That is his number one, ignorance is the tool of the enemy because he can exploit it and he can move it. But if we have to get above him, in my opinion, that's why understanding the esoteric knowledge is paramount today. But another way so you have the right brain, the left brain, you have one that works on intuition, the other one is intellect, logic. And people today, with women, see, I want to just say one other thing here. When you're talking about feminine and masculine, I'm not talking about as a feminist. You really got to just dish all the worldly garbage that's attached to these worlds, all the fallen nature of man in the way he views things in his profane and his perverted and his upside down way. This is very beautiful. So we have to keep our thoughts, and he says, pure, elevated in the level that Elohim originally intended, without tainted by religion, by culture, by caste system, or whatever. So I went into the computer analogy, which is one of the best analogies today. But I want to read from Philo. Jackson, you just tell me on my time, all right, so we got a little bit of time left, right?
Sure.
Okay, because I want to take this thing and I want to flush it out on a couple different levels. But the first I want to do is give some, so from your text, if you were reading it and you look at, now, I have had, sometimes it takes me a long time to figure this stuff out. This is what I mean, you have to be deeply meditative and really think about this stuff. I could never figure out why, if you do Hokum and Bina, if Hokum is the masculine, why is it a feminine word? Tripped me up for the longest time. And I never found a good answer. I could never really talk to a lot of people. I could never like harmonize it. See, because ultimately there are no contradictions in the word Elohim. It's just you're not kind of looking at it from the vantage point. You don't have the information. I was missing a key component, which I found in Philo. But I do want to read a quick thing from Philo. This is why Philo, see, of Alexandria, he was a first century contemporary of Yeshua, brilliant Alexandrian Jew. And in my opinion, see, just because he lived in Alexandria doesn't make him any less, quote unquote, Jewish than anyone else. There was a huge enclave of very Torah-keeping Jews in Alexandria. He was not a Hellenized person, but he was at the level, he was so brilliant, he knew their arguments. He could run circles around them. But Philo says in track 3, he says that the world was made in 6 days. And he says, not because the Creator stood in need of a length of time, for if Yahweh wanted to, he could do everything at once by uttering command or even thinking about it. But he did this because the things created required arrangement, and number is akin to arrangement. So in other words, math, this is where you get into the Gemara, and there's so much parts to this, but there's pattern, formula, math in this whole equation, but I won't go into that. Anyways, so I just want to say it's akin to arrangement. All number 6, by the laws of nature, is the most productive. But he says it is the first perfect when being made equal to its part and being made complete by them. So he goes into 6 and explains how it's a perfect number. It can be, I won't get into that. The number 3 being half a 6, and the number 2 a third of it, and the unit a sixth of it, and so to say it is formed so as to be both male and female, and is made up of the power of both natures. For in existing things, the odd number is the male and the even number is the female. Accordingly, odd numbers is the first of the number 3, and even numbers the first is 2. So he's telling you that this is not like what I'm telling you. I'm not making this up. This is any sage worth his salt would totally know this, understand that this is like, for them, Torah 101. This is why you gotta understand every Hebrew letter is attached to a number. Well, it's not an accident. They're totally have a systematic theology that is, in my opinion, ironclad. Then he goes on to say, it was fitting, therefore, that the world, being the most perfect of created things, should be made according to this perfect number 6. And it arises from combination. So combining male and female on any level, in any concept or ways, since it was to embrace the character both of the male who sows the seed and the female who receives it. So this is very established Hebraic philosophical concepts. He didn't get it from the Greeks. This goes way back, and this is something that we need to reclaim, and that's why I'm doing this. But in just a couple more places, and it's all over your text, you'll see this, like go into Proverbs, Wisdom of Solomon, the whole concept of Bina being a feminine element is one of the best ways they say it. So, but in 2nd Ezra 13:55, see, it says, this is how you can decode this. It says, thy life hast thou ordered in wisdom. Wisdom is always Hokum, and hast called understanding thy mother. See, this is all Hebraic understanding. And they're not talking about your physical mother. They're talking about this philosophical concept of how Yahweh created a binary system. It's a binary system it's a dualistic binary construct. And that's why, in my opinion, again, you have a lot of these Jews who are so smart because they get this understanding from the get-go. I think they're just trained by learning Hebrew and learning to just think, their brains just think on higher levels. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I'm going to read you something from the Zohar. And I'm just going to end with this note. Am I still okay on time? Okay. So this is from Tract 81, the Zohar HaAzimul, the Idra Zutra. So it says, Hokmah, father, was not revealed until it was known to mother, Bina. After their unification, mother had everything in her, including the beginning of channels to Hesed, Gevera, Tiferet, for the patriarchs, Adam, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, I'm sure you're probably not that familiar with this whole, the 10 emanations, the tree of life. And this is something that I'm going to really start to teach on more and more, because people, this is the, again, this is esoteric understanding 101, because all our this is what they're referencing. But the point is that the mother Eve, when it talks about Eve being the mother of all, we, in one sense, because remember I told you every word has many levels, we are talking about Bina. And the point is here is that that's why all souls, they will tell you, emanate. The holy souls emanate from the upper heaven where Bina is. She is God. This is the concept that she is our heavenly mother, because everything that Hokum had that got from Keturah went to Hokum, went into Eve, went into Bina, and Bina now is the mother. And what that will tell you is true, is that Bina is the first area of, I guess you could say, theological, philosophical, conceptual, mental, I don't care what word, where we can really begin to wrap our minds around Elohim. Now, he's way beyond anything we can imagine, but when you get to this understanding, that's why the word understanding of Bina and everything that the sages are, you can begin to get it. And you can begin to see how all the pieces fit together. It is one of the first, that's why it says, get wisdom, but get understanding. And she is your mother. All right. So when you get into, I want to give this last two more illustrations of Yod-Heh, Vav-Heh, which is the Tetragrammaton, which is the name of Elohim, which is in connection to the entire spiritual system. I mean, like I said, I've never seen anybody could pack so much information into a couple symbols here. But Yod is for Hokmah, that includes, and Hey is for Bina. Both are father and mother, and always together. Mother delivered her two children. Now, this is a little less known part of this puzzle, Yod-Heh, Vav-Heh. Vav represents the sun. I mean, most people get that. And Vav is really Yod-Heh, Vav-Heh, because I said before, when you're getting into paternal, that is the father who is like the Ancient of Days. They have so many words for this, but I want to tell you, there are definitely, but the son, Yeshua, that we're interested in, so to speak, in this case, Vav, which is Tiferet, which is the son, which is Yeshua, which is the hub. He has, so there's so much in this, but I want to tell you Vav. But the last Hey, so you got Yav-Hey, and then you got Vav-Hey. There's another female component, and this is called the daughter. And this is a piece of the puzzle that's kind of really been lost in the whole last 1,800 years, the translations, is the daughter, which is considered to be Malkut, which is considered to be Shekinah, which is considered to be the Ruach HaKodesh, which is our first interface with, that's why, be baptized in and receive the Ruach HaKodesh. If you don't receive that level, like that's the gate, like that's your ticket in to the supernal words. If you don't have the daughter, and she's called the daughter because she's a feminine, but coming from Bina, the mother. So the mother has a daughter, the father has a son, and they're a family, and they all work together. Now, are there literally, does God really? No, it's just relationally words used to give us some concept of relationship that we can relate to. But this is where you have to be able to think and not get stuck on a wrong thing, because at the same time, this son and daughter, Vav and Hey, the last Hey of Yod-Heh, Vav, is also referred to as the bride. And the son is also referred to as the groom. So here you have the son marrying the daughter. I mean, that's supposed to, but it's not, but this is where you have to think, like I said, we're not in the same category. We moved into another whole realm of words used to express a very specific context and piece of this puzzle. So there you have the bride and the groom. So it's just, you really got to be able to, I mean, hey, I'm telling you, this is great stuff. In my opinion, what else are you going to do? You're going to play Candy Crush with your time in your brain? It's going to do you any good in the long run. So one last point I want to make here is, so when you understand this, there's just like some of these enigmatic verses, like here's one from the Gospel of Philip. I told you, like, all right, so this will, like when the one that's from the Gospel of Thomas, when the female becomes male, right? Nothing to do with gender. It's not like she's going to, just like she was trying to tell Nicodemus, you're not going to get like physically born again. You're not going to climb back up in your mother's womb. Like, you're a teacher in Israel. You can't think at this level. He's trying, like, how can I explain stuff to you if you can't even, if you're not even at Torah 101 here? So here, this is the Gospel of Philip. I think it's verse 6. When we were Hebrews, we were orphans. We had only our mother. And it says, but when we became Christians, and that's probably, this is a bad translation in a sense, but when we became, I guess you could say believers here, we had both father and mother. And this is, again, the concept. When they use the word orphans in the Bible, see a lot of first, or even Essenes are called simple and poor. It's not really referring to your pocketbook. It's referring to your spiritual state. Poor means you are just spiritually bereft of any real wisdom and understanding. I mean, if you don't have the real gold, see, Hokum and Bina are also referred to as silver and gold. Get silver and gold and in the heavenly kind that doesn't rust. I'm not talking about earthly silver and gold. I'm talking about heavenly wisdom and understanding. So they only had their lower mother, which is referred to as the daughter. See, when you begin to get this, you can get into some very complex verses and kind of begin to get a handle of what they're saying. And then you got to understand that, yes, there's Yahweh, Vavhe, there's a daughter, there's a lower mother, there's an upper wisdom and a lower. You can keep all this stuff straight and you can kind of track with them. So, but when we became believers, we had both father and mother. And this is the point. When you get back up to the level of the supernals being full, like Yeshua, this is the whole point of the, when he was baptized and the dove came out, the dove representing Bina, his mother, this whole picture play that was going on, he was being fully acknowledged as full of his mother and full of his father. Hokmah and Bina, he had supernal wisdom and understanding to the level, we could say, and I think this is what Moshe was saying, there will rise up a prophet who's even, greater than me. This guy's gonna. So this is where they are. This is what they're all talking about. And I'm going to keep unflushing all this. I think I got 2 more chances at this. And there's a lot of stuff in using Paul because, again, understanding what it means to the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. When Paul is talking about the mother above, Jerusalem above, and then Hagar, the mother, what is he referring to? He is referring to all of this deeply esoteric understanding that has been kept is sort of like for the Torah scholar, but he's now, this knowledge is going out to the Gentiles, is going out to the world. The explosion that the first century had, not only in miracle signs, wonders, was because there was such an explosion of understanding how the supernal worlds operate and what had just happened. And, again, within 100 years, it was already kind of corrupted and distorted, and we've never operated at that power source sense. So I say, let's get free. Let's get free of this fundamentalism that tells us how to interpret the scriptures. Let's get into the mind of our brother Yudah, who kept all this for us. And let's get free, especially Jerusalem, get the understanding of Jerusalem who's above. And she is our mother. Above all, this is Bina, the mother of all living. And righteous souls come from Bina.
Amen. That was packed.
Sorry.
Can you take a question from me?
Sure.
Thank you.
The question is, how does, if a family of Elohim, how does that then extend past Hakma and Bina and to the others that are maybe a little less related in the family, like spirits and humans? And
Yep, that's a good question, Jackson. And again, in a 2-minute answer, see, this is where understanding, okay, the 22 letters of the alphabet, right? So you have, which refers to 10 emanations, 10, and 12 tribes. So you put 10 and 2. This is, again, allegorical language. You put 10 and 12 together, you get 22. But this is why, along with understanding the 10 Suffereth, which is a theological system, you have to understand the next piece of this puzzle, which is called the 4 worlds. Now, I just did my last YouTube teaching, I was unpacking the 4 worlds, because when Yahweh says that I think Isaiah says that we were made, we were formed, we were created. and then the breath of life was put in. He is talking about 4 worlds, because what you have here is there's a world of creation, there's a world of what they call formation, and there's a world of physicality. 99% of the people of the world is we only recognize in a secularist only the world of physicality, but the world of the soul is in a dimensional reality, and it's graphed, it's plotted. They know where it is, and they know how to describe it, and they have all these words, and in that reality opens up when you understand the code words, and then up, what Ezekiel had this vision of the throne room, and then what's going on there at that level. So what Jacob saw with his Jacob's ladder was this idea that and this is what I believe, we can ascend. It's your free will. You can have as much wisdom and understanding, kind of ascend into a soul as you want or not, and that kind of determines, does that make sense? There's other words for it, kind of where you fall out, where you shake out in this thing. When, like I like to say, when the music stops and you got to find a chair, that's where you are. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's like it opens up about 1,000 other questions.
Sure.
But that's the point of this, is you're doing a swift overview of this family of Elohim, and it could take many sessions to pick that apart. It's deep, like you said.
It's very deep, and like I said, I'm just scratching, and I'm probably in, Kabbalah 101. I mean, this stuff is deep. These sages have had a long time, the most brilliant minds in the world, and I'm not a really sharp pencil in the deck, really.
But we like your glasses.
Oh, my little.
Next time you come on, I think we'll have our screen up so that folk here can see you. I just want to explain to the people that are here that in our way of thinking, we're open to other understandings, and that what the Essenes did and what we do, we give a hearing. We don't say anything, we give a hearing. Then afterwards, when they're done speaking, we can ask our questions, but we don't dispute. We can make judgments as we're supposed to do, but we don't dispute. Liz comes from a kind of a different tradition than probably most of us. And she is, her foundation is in mysticism. So what she's done here is to give us just a crack open in the door of a different world from a mystic's point of view. And I think we've talked about this concept many times. Lee and I sure do a lot. And it was rather foreign to me, though it was introduced to me in seminary, but I'm starting to move in to understand this more, brother.
Can you give us a definition of what a mystic is?
Yeah. Oh, I see. Somebody that's interested in spirituality. Would you say that's right? The definition of a mystic, Liz?
Well, I kind of don't like that word because nobody knows what it means. I mean, I don't really know. The way I just say is the Bible is in the beginning, Yahweh made heavens and earth. I mean, most people think that that the Bible only tells us about things that happen on earth. But when you really look there's tons of information of what is going on in the heavens. I mean, angels and, in this, so this world, the information that we can glean about the heavens is what I would say interests me, which I guess if that makes you a mystic, but the mystic is sort of, I don't know, I'm into theoretical, again, philosophical understandings. I mean, it's not like I practice, I don't go sit on a lotus leaf. To me, the mystic sort of means, somebody who
sit on a lotus leaf.
Contemplates their navel kind of thing. What I'm trying to say, to me, and this is where, in my opinion, those who have been studying the text, we've got to get into this deeper esoteric understanding of what's going on behind the veil, because there's a lot, and the Essenes had tons of this. That's why they are known as the keepers of the secrets.
Okay, Lee has a follow-up here. Oh, that's pretty good. Could you hear that, Liz?
No.
One who studies mysteries until they're no longer mysteries.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Paul said. He said, look, in people, it goes right over people's heads in Corinthians. He says, even though I understand all mysteries, but again, have not love, you got to have fruit. But this is a whole category. I don't think the Christians have ever been introduced to this biblical concept of, like I said, in parts, the sod level understanding, the mystery, which really what that means is, it really means sort of the master level, the PhD level of biblical understanding. You just don't teach it in kindergarten. I mean, come on. I mean, could we have this with a bunch of kindergartners? No. It takes a mature brain, somebody who's sort of, you got to be able to handle college level material. That's what a mystery level is all about.
Well, see, in kindergarten, I hated girls, but I grew up. Yeah, here's another question. If you have time, do you have time?
Yeah, I have time.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, you got to eat lunch.
Okay, let's start over here with Desmond and go across the room. You mean like the sun and the moon? That's a hard question. You want to come up here and give it? You need to get on this microphone. I was going to just repeat it, but that's going to be tough. Here's Desmond.
Hey there. I wanted to ask anything that you found in your studies as far as the light that was created on the first day, how that relates to the emitters of light created on the fourth day. And
Good question.
what the spiritual side of that is. And
Okay.
I know like sun and moon, but looking more at the spiritual aspect.
Right. And that is a great question. And that opens up again we could do a whole hour on that concept. So the 6 days creation, again, parallel sort of an emanative state from taking something from the thought consciousness into actual physicality, reality. I mean, that's really what's going on. Yahweh wants to create a world full of stuff and souls and peoples and, all this whole stuff. And so it's a process. It's just, but in the middle there, you have on the fourth day, this whole thing of the sun, the moon, and stars. He makes the firmament, or we call this the astrological, the heavens. All right. Now, this is why there's 10 heavens. This is what is in the tally of the text. But in the middle, you have this whole world of the mazal. All right. The sun, the moon, and the stars. And this gets into this, unpacking this. And actually, let me give you this. Will explain so much. This is another little piece from the Zohar, and it says here in Zohar, Keep Tetzit. It says Malkut is prisoned in her exile. Now, I want to flush all this out. It says the minister or the prince of the other side, Samiel, nests among the stars to have Malkut under his control. His power will be removed in the future, as the prophet Obadiah tells us. So in another verse, and it says, though you soar like the eagle and make your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares Yahweh. See, when you understand this whole thing in the geographic, when it talks about the sides of the north, there's a couple references like in Gog and Magog, and it's not talking about Russia. I mean, there's a geographic location in a Sephirithic realm called Gevera, where actually you could say, and this is what the prophet, Hasatan has his home base. I mean, he's an angel. He's an archangel. He is a created being. But he functions. He operates. He begins because he's been kicked out of the high heavens. So he kind of landed. That's where he kind of landed. His influence begins there and filters down. Because when it talks about a river, let me just say, it's all about emanations. When he made, that there was a river that came out of, where does the river start? I forget. Eden and flow. Anyways, these are emanative, like you say, light. He is light. And so this is what gets into the whole idea of the zodiac, or what do they call it? The Mazareth, the whole picture, the whole story that's being told in the heavens. That is the whole realm of time. Time is a dimension, We know this now from minds. It's a dimension, and its origination, its place of operation, like look at it like a clock. Its mechanical operations are going on in the heavens. So the sun and the moon and the stars, when it says that the stars will fall to the earth, we're not talking about literally the stars. These are coded to say that the fallen angels, their nest, their bases, their influence, their ability to influence human beings, because it will be wiped out. They're going to fall. They're going to be brought down. They're not going to be able. So there is a supernal light behind the light. The other thing you have to understand, always. So while we have a sun physically, which is the main light in the heavens, and it's a huge, and this gets into the mythology and the war of the Titans and the war of the Olympians and what was really going on in the heavens, and this whole concept that Hasatan was thrown down from a place of influence. But the concept of the Mazzaroth, the astrological chart, the stories they tell, the Bazal, the influence, that's the whole story of what's going on in those middle, and it's huge, and that's a good question, but that's, I don't know. I don't hope that even began to open that up for you.
Next. Yeah, Gov.
Can you hear me?
Is it one that I could relate? Is it one that I could, huh? Okay.
How much is too much? How are there things we cannot know until we pass?
As it comes to knowledge,
Understanding these things until they're not mystery. Are the mysteries we will not know?
is there a time when, or we'll say a portal, that we're not to cross? We could go so far, and then, is this what you're saying? And then no more. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's got there, but it seems like some concepts claim to have gone to a point where they actually talk to Elohim personally and get direction. Is there a point to stop, or?
Well, this is where, and then again, you have to understand, none of this, what I've explained, in my opinion, this is the Jewish understanding, is New Age, is occultic in the sense of the negative. So you understand, there's always, the flip side, I never talk about, there's always there's a flip side. We know there's a hostility. So there's the klipoth, the Hebrews call it the klipoth, there's the dark side in their realm and how they operate and how they're constantly trying through Mazal to influence man, influence our minds first to think wrong thoughts that will lead to wrong actions. So what the thing is, though, the thing about Yeshua, see, so that's the whole lie of an ascended master. I mean, that to me, that's one of the lies of sort of a New Age concept of this. Yeshua gave the parable. He said, there's only one way in the gate, the field. You got to go that way. Everybody else, if you try to jump over the fence or this, you're a hireling. There's one. He is, that's why he says he's the door. Think of it this way. The door would be another way of saying he is the portal. He has become the portal, the opening for anyone to now enter back in. You know, consider, let's say you're fallen, you fell out of the tree house and you want to climb back up. You got to go through this gate, which would be, and this is why, isn't the Ruach HaKodesh, Shekinah, Yeshua, there's only one way up. And for the believer, like I said, you can spend, and this is the only difference between a righteous Sadiq, a holy soul, you know, they say the Sadiq that holds the world together, and is how much time you want to give it. You want to devote your whole life? Do you want to have every thought be devoted to Elohim, or, you know, wherever? So, but there is only one gate, one door, one entrance into the upper realms through, because everybody else is a liar, a thief, right? Yeah. That's what the text tells us.
Well, you're saying then on any level of understanding, there is a dark side. Even
absolutely.
If it's very simple or whether it is complex.
Yes. And that's why, like the thing, that's why I say this again, we need to get this, the esoteric understanding, because Satan has stolen it and he has put it out there and he's lying to everybody with the New Age and all these, you know, the Hindus and the Buddhists have a lot of this information, but again, it's very profaned. It's not pure. Judah kept this in the house and it was always prophesied. It was really for the last days. This is why it's so important today. And that's why Kabbalistic knowledge is, there's an explosion. And I'm not talking about Madonna. Again, profane, you got to difference between the profane and the holy.
How about Oprah? We can follow her, can't we?
Yeah, right. Book The Secret of the Way, But see what they do, and this is my big rub. This is the lower seven, the occultists, the new, whatever you want, misguided people. Listen, a lot of us were, people who just don't know yet what they're doing. Hasatan, there's only one body of knowledge, so to speak, but he steals it, he repackages it, he puts it out to people, and he forgets to tell, by the way, this is, there is a creator at the top. This is what Paul, look at, there is one Yetzero, one Rabbono Shel Olam at the top of this thing. That is something that they always like to leave out, very conveniently.
Well, our time's up, Liz. That was very good, and sure appreciate you. Maybe you would be, if we have an opening here before your next time, I'll get a hold of you. You might be free.
Okay, and so I'll see you tomorrow at
11:30.
What was it?
11:30.
You can come.
Wait. No, what did he just say? I changed it to 2 o'clock.
Let me finish here, okay, fellas? Tomorrow, 11:30 is open because you changed. And let me go on to find you on here again. I think it's not till like next Tuesday.
No, I thought I had changed with Onia, and I was going to do the 2 o'clock because I have to teach a watercolor. So I thought I was on for 2 o'clock.
I couldn't get that to work out with the other guys involved.
Oh.
But there is an opening tomorrow at 11:30. Same time as this. You want to do it?
I couldn't do, as soon as I could do it would be noon.
Okay. That'll be fine. Could you do it at noon?
Okay. I can
All right.
do it noon.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of interest evidently in what you're saying, and we'll have some more people in here tomorrow. Okay, great.
Okay, and you'll send me a copy of this?
Yes, of
I'd
course.
like to.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Well, I wish I was there.
Wish you were too. We could have some really good arguments then.
Now have at it. I'm glad I'm not there.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Thanks, Liz. Catch
All right.
you tomorrow.
Shalom.
Everybody says shalom.